I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Quinlan Nation, traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded today. Also pay respects to the elders past and present, and extend that respect to any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today. This is Melanated in Melbourne, a podcast designed to give an insightful look into the Australian lifestyle from the lens of two Black American besties.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Melanated in Melbourne. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Richard.
And today we are joined by our very lovely friends who are going to help us discuss the topic of...
Racism.
Racism.
Was that the sound you meant to?
It was. Because I can't applaud racism.
No, you can't, but
Sure
was
you-
there...
And
suddenly...
See?
Well, let's introduce ourselves since we're agreeing with racism. So just
Yeah,
right off the bat.
exactly. Go ahead. White power, Quinlan.
Oh,
Go ahead. I'm kidding.
She's not kidding, though.
Oh my god. Wait, am I actually introducing myself now?
Yes,
after
Dan.
that?
Go ahead. Introduce yourself. Tell the people who you is.
Oh, I don't know how to. I'm nervous.
All right, take it. We can go to this
Yeah,
one
let-
because
I'm shy.
I am Isaac, and I would have voted for Obama a third time.
Oh my God! Here we go. Where's the teacup? Where is the teacup? No.
Greatest president of my lifetime.
Yes, I love that because for your lifetime that you were involved with. So these are our first two guests that are not American.
Yes.
I'm born and raised here.
God.
Yeah, so we're very grateful to have you because when we talked about the idea of discussing racism, obviously we've experienced it from our Black American lens.
Yeah.
But considering you both are people of color who have grown up here your entire lives, you will have
Yes.
different perspectives, like growing up here, different interactions with your friends, with your family, and just in general. So we're very grateful to have both of you, Isaac and Quinlan. Would you like to do your proper introduction?
Oh, okay. Well, my name's Quinlan, and I did vote for Julia Gillard.
I totally know who that is.
Oh,
It's
you know
the
who she-
only female prime minister Australia's had.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The,
we
the,
threw
the
her under the bus
Obama of
pretty hard.
Australia.
I mean, most of our listeners are Australian anyway, so they'll get that.
Awesome.
But any Australian reference you make, just explain it like
Oh.
they're babies. Because
Yes.
we know nothing about Australian culture back home.
Sure don't.
We learned like Kangaroo Jack and
Crocodile
Dundee.
Dundee.
Yeah.
And then
And
Steve
Steve
Irwin.
Irwin.
They made
for
sure
real,
to-
for real. Don't say nothing bad about Steve Irwin around me. It is on site. For
Make
real.
sure to watch out for the drop bears, though, right? Have they been
Okay,
drop
see,
bears?
don't do that because I believed in this whole
Oh
thing.
my god.
Listeners, please listen up because these people will try to trick you. They talked about, like, when I first came here, they're like, oh, have you heard about the drop bears? And I'm like, drop bears? What in tarnation is a drop bear?
that tarnation.
They tried to, like, go ahead, try and trick us.
Well, yeah, they're a chlamydia-ridden, like, little bear.
as opposed to just standard koalas. If you're going in, just go in. Like,
Yeah, no, and you got to be careful because if you're, like, walking down, you can't really decipher them from koalas, which, that's what kind of makes them terrifying. Koalas are pretty docile, but drop bears, you see them up your
Drop
thing, you
bears.
come down. It's
From the top, make it drop.
and that's how they got chlamydia.
Oh my god.
wet ass P word.
What keyword? Oh, so also this is not a family friendly
Yeah.
show,
Yeah,
so you
it's
can
not.
say.
Oh, no,
pussy.
I was quoting Shapiro. I was just trying to...
Oh my God, ew.
Don't worry, we'll edit everything
No
Isaac
kids
says
and
out
no
of this.
Shapiro. Ew, gross.
Wait, but
Kick it out.
I'm meant to be here to rant about, like, vaccines, right? That's what you brought me here for.
Ew, no,
Yes.
absolutely not.
Can
You
we do
will-
our intros properly?
Wait, like, what did it take?
I'm like taking it back.
Yes.
He's like, I'm ready now.
It's like I'm a professional. Some of us tried today.
I have ADHD. If we don't get there, it's not going to get
Oh,
us.
good, baby.
Oh,
No,
damn.
we all. That's why I have this
It's all
list
good.
going, and I'm checking them off
It's
as
all
I go.
good.
Because if I didn't, we would just get lost in the sauce and
It
trapped
is-
in the game.
This is a safe space.
It
I
is.
love. So yes, if you would like to do your intro.
Oh, okay. Oh my god, why did I
Oh
do this
my
to
God,
myself?
Oh, you're fine. So tell us
No,
about
dude.
your,
Everybody
where you
close
grew
your
up.
eyes. Everybody close your eyes so Quinlan can do.
I'm going to go on my phone.
I'm gonna check out now. Yeah.
No. So my name's Quinlan. I'm one of the Melburnians on the podcast, and I'm half Chinese, which is pretty relevant to this episode.
Yes.
And I've grown up here all my life. I'm 28, living my full-time 9-to-5
Ew.
job era, and yeah, I think that's enough for now.
We love that.
Love that. Love that.
Thank
love
you for
that.
thank you for coming. And this one.
Oh, yes, I am Isaac. I would have voted for Obama a third time. Greatest president of my lifetime. Born and raised in Australia and moved to Melbourne 4 years ago to pursue my career in the arts.
Lovely. Thank you for that.
Love it. Love it. Love that.
Yes. Did you want to do a culture shock? Do you have one?
Oh, okay, it's not really like a culture shock per se, but we have crows back home as well.
Shit.
We do. We have crows back home as well, so it's not like they're like completely different. But the crows back home go like ka ka, right? But the crows here, I swear to God, they have an accent. They have an accent? They do. They're like ka ka. Yes, they're like You see? Even they're nasally, and I can't believe that.
I actually was so worried you were gonna go the other way around. But since we're talking about birds, magpies.
I was about to say, are you getting confused with magpie?
No, when you said crows, I thought you were gonna talk about the magpies.
No. First of all, magpies sound like computers.
They sound beautiful.
They sound like murderous beasts.
Gorgeous.
What they sound like.
Listen, it's
absolutely gorgeous.
It's about to be swooping season.
Oh no, it is, and that's why I thought you were going with it. Like swooping season is upon us, nearly. So spring, well, down under spring is coming. Is here. Technically, if you looked outside, the weather's great. But there are birds called magpies that are almost like crows, but they got a white back and they're vicious as shit. Like they're also very smart. So like if they're like regular birds in the park where they get fed all the time, they're fine. But if not, and you're like rolling through, swooping seasons when they just dive from their, because they get really territorial with their babies and they just dive on you. And I have not been swooped yet in my 6 years.
Me neither.
Knock on wood. But I've literally seen a magpie ripping a crow apart, like just eating its guts.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm going to cross the street because I don't want any of that smoke. I'm good here. It was in your hometown, actually. It was in Adelaide. It was in Adelaide that I saw this. And I was like,
it's in the water.
I was like, Mommy, can you help me? I'm scared.
For real, like the magpies here, they're nothing to mess with. They're like the mob. They're like, you got to give them like a little bit of something. You got to pay them.
And
just to
they
get
hold
them
a grudge. They hold a grudge.
They hold a grudge. They got long memories. They got one of them elephant memories.
We'll fuck you right up. But that's my culture shock because I've never been afraid of a bird until I moved here.
Yeah.
I mean, Big Bird was kind of scary. I'm not going to lie to you. Big Bird did terrify me for a while.
Bird?
He is too damn big.
You're body shaming Big Bird.
Oh, I'm not. I'm saying he's too damn big to be like, hey, guys, hanging out with children. No, scared, terrified. You tell me this 7-foot bird walks up to you and you're 5 and you're not going to be like, I don't want this.
He can't help that he's big.
I mean, he could. He could sit down. A whole ass hot mess.
I can take that journey back to magpies.
Yes.
You can, only for the fact that it was just about birds. Yeah.
Talk about my love of magpies.
You love them?
Adore them. My mum's house, she has 4 magpies that come out into the backyard.
She got 4 magpies on like
just,
leashes?
They're in the area. They'll come by. They sit down on like the outdoor furniture and they'll like warble away until like my mum comes out and like gives us some food. She'll be sitting out there eating as well. They'll be sitting there.
See, I ain't trying to mess with your mama.
She's paying for protection. That's what she's paying for protection. I dare you to show up and be like trying to be a door knocker. You're like, hello, get him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The moment's come.
But speaking of animals, in preparation for a racism episode, I rewatched Zootopia a couple days ago, and I saved some of my favorite racially coded jokes. So,
Can't wait.
So I haven't watched Zootopia in ages.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember if that movie's like real like.
Oh no, it's so on the nose. They'll make little jokes about rabbits, like everyone's very racist to everyone, but because they're all animals, they're like, oh yeah, these
cute
predators.
racism.
It's like, oh, it's in their DNA.
Yep.
They're like, a fox is always gonna be fox. You never trust a fox; they'll always betray you. It's in their DNA. They're always hustlers.
Hardy yard. That's a hardy
And
yard.
I'm just like, wow. If y'all want to say it, just say it. Like, you don't have to do this. One of my favorite things, the main fox character is voiced by Jason Bateman, and the rabbit character was like, can foxes swim? And I literally just like, because it's so clearly quoted that foxes are black people. You can't tell me otherwise. Like,
totally.
can foxes swim? And I'm like, are you joking?
Are you telling me Jason Bateman
Yes.
is in blackface in Zootopia?
He's in fox face, first of all. But yes. And it was like, oh, no. So there was also a scene where they were working with the assistant mayor, and she was like, the fox character was touching her hair. And it's like, oh, it's so fluffy. The sheep character. And she was like, you can't touch a sheep's hair. And I'm like, oh my God.
This is too much.
And I was like,
love it.
But because I was like, obviously we're going to talk about racism in the whole spectrum. I'm like, God, it was so on there. I was like, I liked the movie. I saw it once. This is my second time watching it because I was like, wow, this is for teaching children about racism. It was very direct, and I liked that, but it's not a rewatch. Like, it was funny. It was cute. I loved the jokes. One of the other ones, they were like, go back to the forest. And then she's like, I'm from the savannah. She was yelling at a gazelle. And they were yelling at a gazelle, go back to the forest. I'm like, yeah, go back to Africa. We get it. Okay.
Oh my.
And they were just way on the top with it. But I'm like, damn. Like, the way that I had that growing up a shit ton. I was always the darkest kid in my class, so I was made fun of for being like, oh, go back to Africa. I'm like, bitch, I don't even know where in Africa I'd be from. Like, I'm 10. What are you talking about? So,
I guess it's for children, so it's meant to be very
Yeah.
on the nose. It's not really made for adults.
and hopefully it's having conversations with those kids, because otherwise they're like, oh, they're so mean to that fox for some reason, not knowing the context in the slightest of what they were going for.
Sure. And I think it's like I'm gonna have to go back and watch it and like look out for all of those things. But I kind of feel like they hit spoiler alert. But
It
then
came
again,
out 7 years
It came
ago.
out 7 years ago. But it's like, but I feel like they hit the ending on the head when they're just like the people who pretend to be victims are actually like the abusers or the oppressives. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Oppressors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Play a victim and a villain at the same time.
Okay, Beyonce.
Whole lot of Sorry.
You need to cool
Money.
down. You need to cool down.
Okay. Send me your fun, hot, hot, hot. All right, I'm done.
And this is why we have a structure. So the main thing about the racism, once again, to our listeners, we do have a lot of white listeners, and we appreciate you. So grateful
It's
for
okay
that.
to be white.
It is still okay to be white,
My
but
mum listens. Is starting to listen.
Hey, Magpie Mama.
at least someone's listening. Anyway, Isaac and I go way back. We just roast each other nonstop, so there's no hostility here on his part.
Sigh.
So for our white listeners, we appreciate that you are listening. And if you were to be having these racism conversations with your friends and family, remember to do your research first. We are not here to educate you. This is a conversation just to discuss it and for it to be furthered by other people. Going up to a person of color being like, hey, can you explain this to me? I might
not.
get you slapped, honestly. Like, we don't have the energy all the time to discuss. Like, I didn't go out last night. I was in my Zen space because this is going to be an exhausting topic, despite the fact that we have lots of laugh in between the entire time. It's an exhausting topic for people to deal with, and racism is not a problem for us to be fixing. It is honestly on the white people as a whole, because we can't break a system we didn't create to begin with. But it's still a very candid conversation to have, to share our experiences with each other. And that's the main reason we wanted to have this topic. Did you want to...
Well, actually, as Isaac, I agree with everything you just said, Richard. Yeah, I was in the same kind of space as well. And like, I wanted to take the time to mentally prepare for what it is that we're going to be doing today and discussing, because it is a very heavy topic, and it's grueling, and it's draining, and it's something that white people, they don't have to think about it. They actually don't have to think about their race and the way that it impacts them. Us, however, we have to deal with it every single day. So sometimes we're going to have the energy, sometimes we're not going to have the energy, but hopefully we're going to be able to navigate this space all together. But Isaac, I was just going to ask what your ethnic makeup was, just because we know you got the Magpie Mama, but yeah.
That was also coded. Your mother has magpies.
I was gonna say he's half magpie.
Is
Like,
it
you're
black and white? Is that what it is?
Honestly, you do give magpie vibes, so this makes sense.
Oh! After what you just said.
After what you just said,
Watch out for me in springtime.
I
all I'm
always
saying.
do.
That's all I'm saying.
You're speaking his language.
Is that pigeon?
Oh my god.
Yes, I am half Kenyan, half Australian.
Oh, beautiful.
And if we're going to get specific on the Australian, it's Hungarian, Swedish, Irish.
Cool.
So I'm a cacophony of...
I love that, the
Many.
IKEA area. The IKEA region.
But yeah, and I was also the token black person
Oh my God.
in Adelaide for like
Oh, honey.
until I think like year 7.
Year goddamn 7. Holy shit, you were one of the strongest soldiers.
I was gonna say, everyone knows trauma makes you funny. That's just that's
absolutely.
honestly a fact.
That's exactly the recipe.
So I am very curious to hear about what that was like for you, because growing up, for me at least, I can't speak for Nicole. I had other black kids in my class. I mean, they were bullying me, but they were still there. So I still felt seen enough. Like, I wasn't the only one in this. It was still a fairly white space, but I wasn't the only one. What was that like for you?
Well, by the time I hit high school and there were black people around, a lot of them were just doing sport. And I'm not the most sportiest of gays by choice.
Listeners, there was a very, very fabulous wrist flick.
But yeah, no, so like everyone, I guess, sort of had that expectation that I would go in that path. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't find that interesting. And I think I did pretty much what every bullied black person does when people go they can't do sport, which is just get really into anime.
Oh my god.
I love this. I love this journey.
I love that that's international.
Where did it
Carry on.
start? Where did it start with the anime?
Where did the anime start?
Yes.
Probably a combination of Last Airbender, One Piece, and by the time I hit high school, I was into Death Note and all the darker weird shit. But the one that I never watched that everyone of my generation watched, and I can see Rashad knows exactly.
I know
where this is
exactly what you're
going.
about to
Is
say
it
too.
Pokemon?
No.
It's Naruto. I have not watched Naruto, and everyone hears that and they're like, "What?
Who are you?
You can't say that."
I
And
ordered some Naruto last night, and it was delicious. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
She's not kidding. She's not kidding though. She's not kidding. It was like, can I get a Naruto and a little side of
Extra crunch.
Kakashi?
Yes, with the extra crunch on top. Thank you.
Hold the Sakura. We don't want it.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of my mates who's really big into anime as well, he hadn't watched Naruto at all. He's white, by the way, so he's
Then
he's
the story.
an ally.
Oh. Ally.
Next.
Say something,
Get
Valentina.
out.
Ally.
And he finally finished reading the manga, and he was just like, "Yo, Naruto, it's not it." And
Ooh, snap.
I love that you brought this to the table as if you thought someone here was going to agree with you.
no, I'm not saying this in agreement. I'm saying this because I know you would have a heart attack knowing someone
Oh,
potentially doesn't like Naruto.
but that's okay because that's the friend you wanted us to hire that we won't be hiring, right?
Well, I guess he won't be listening to this. I was telling him about the whole thing. Oh, I'm on a podcast and stuff now, but no, it's gone now.
Yeah, you're going to tell him anyway. You tell him everything.
Scratched on the list.
I like how you made a vain threat. I'm like, you're not gonna follow through with this one.
I don't follow through with half my threats.
Aw, real.
Well, we still love that you make them.
I know. I love my threats.
Love that. And Quinlan, what was it like growing up for you here in Australia?
Growing up here, it was very complicated, actually. Like, speaking of being into anime and other things like K-pop and the Asian community very popular here, it was hard because growing up half Chinese, I was surrounded by people who loved anime and K-pop, which is Japanese and Korean, but being Chinese was looked as bad.
Yes.
Because we don't have the
Totally.
cultural currency like those other countries have. So then it's like, oh, well, you're just taking over our land and buying everything.
Wow.
Yeah, and also the Chinese government is looked at as terrible. So I was always very envious of people who were Korean and Japanese, and I was like, well, why do they get to be looked at as so cool, but then I'm looked at as frowned upon, basically, or not meant to be here.
Totally.
So that was really hard growing up like that. And I was, because I'm also half as well, half Australian, but Irish Italian.
Okay.
And I never fit in with other Asian kids. And they would kind of bully me, kind of similar, even because you had darker skin and I looked different to other Asian people, but I didn't fit in with white people. So I was always in this in-between space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was hard.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Yeah, because those other groups that you mentioned are viewed under the veil of white supremacy as the closest thing to white, because you will hear constantly oh, the Japs are the best. They got the best cars, they got the best this, the best food. You will hear nothing but wonderful things about Japanese people here. But as soon as you mention China or the Chinese, oh, fuck China, fucking right, those fucking dog cunts. You're just whoa, it flips so quickly, and it's volatile, and there is a deep vitriol there that I have witnessed. I have witnessed myself. I can't even tell you how many times I've just been standing and observing a conversation taking place, and somebody just being like, I'm not racist. But
always
but I fucking hate Asians. And I'm just like, okay, that's exactly what it is, you dumb bitch.
That is
that's
racism.
Exactly
that is
what it is.
Yeah.
Australians don't know what racism is.
They don't. They have no clue.
To both of your points, when you're saying that you don't have the culture currency, I have found that for myself being here. As soon as I speak, people are like, oh, you're one of the good ones. Like someone
Correct.
physically told me I was one of the good ones because I have an American
Correct.
accent. But being this skin tone and not speaking, they'd be like, oh, are you an African gang? There'd be some people assume, oh, you think I'm joking, but like we joke about it, but it's real. So because I was born in America, I have that cultural occurrence like, oh, Black Americans create all the cool stuff. But if I was just African, it would be like, oh,
To add to that, I always got that I was African American, and
Oh God.
most of the time, a lot of stuff I was dealing with was stuff like people looking at me like, "Oh my God, he's African American.
Oh my God.
He must like rap music. He has an afro. Can I touch your hair?" And it took me till I left high school before I was like, "Oh yeah, it kind of wasn't right that I was uncomfortable through all of those interactions with
Yeah.
white people,
Poor
huh?"
thing.
And those are the things, again, that people don't have to think about. They're like, oh, especially like cultural awareness, like, oh, this is probably an inappropriate thing I'm saying or doing, because they're not used to that exposure of just being like, oh, cool, there's other Black people. I know what not to say. They're not doing the research themselves most of the time. And it's just exhausting to be that person to be like, oh, let me explain to you why what you're doing is inappropriate and wrong in every which way, because that's just exhausting.
Google exists.
It does.
Google it.
It does, but it's just like at the same time, these people are just so sequestered and closed off to everything else that isn't their immediate culture and their immediate race, and then they're just like ignorant. They're just ignorant, and then they don't seek out the knowledge because why would they have to? Like, why would they have to unless they want to be a good person and find out about other things? But other than that, like, they don't have to, which is insane.
Isaac, would you say that, similar to Quinlan, you had a similar experience of being, quote-unquote, in the middle with your biracial identity, growing up in Adelaide, where you may or may not have fit in with other Black people or fit in with white people? Or what was that experience like for you?
Well, I never really sort of realized how different I was until high school, because that's when there was more and more Black people I was interacting with from Africa. That's where a lot of people from South Sudan started coming into Australia.
Okay.
So I basically saw that influx happen through my high school. And that's where I noticed that people were like, they realized they were like, wait a minute, we got to kind of put this guy in a box. But
Yeah.
We don't know where to put him.
we don't know where to put him. He's into video games. He's with these nerdy white kids for a while. He's not really camp, because that's a whole other thing. So, like, not there. And not sporty. So I was just sort of floating around. And I think I kind of floated through high school really well because, how would I say this? I'm very pleasant to be around, question mark, I think.
I would say so.
Be bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yeah, so I just made it through. But I'm trying to think of what else it was. It's, yeah. I can't even remember the topic.
No, but I understand. But I understand what you're saying. People so badly want to be able to label you
Yes.
immediately upon meeting you, so they know exactly which box to put you in. And there is nothing worse than having a label assigned to you. I didn't choose this for myself. You don't even know who the fuck I am, but now I have to live through this lens of the way that you want to see me.
Living up to your expectations.
Yeah, that I don't necessarily agree with, or yeah.
And I got weird access to white people in ways because people would often go, oh, well, he's one of the good ones, so we'll talk to him.
Yep.
Correct.
And because I'm mixed, they'd casually throw out their actual beliefs about certain
Totally.
things.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I'd kind of be like, huh,
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing to say.
Yes.
Oh, but not you. Not you.
Oh, but not
No,
you.
no,
You're
no,
one of the,
not
again.
you.
You're one of the good ones,
Yeah.
and again, that's not the compliment that you think it is.
Same thing happens as well whenever I'm hanging out with my straight friends. And I'll just be like,
Straight people, boo.
As a resident straight person, Nicole is like, she
I
understands.
do them.
look, they're trying their hardest.
I'm heterophobic, so
You hate yourself.
I am.
But, actually, no, that's a really good segue, because being biracial, but also your queer identity in these spaces, speaking from my own personal experience, the Black community has not always been the most welcoming to queer people, and I don't know if that has been the same for both of your racial identities that are not white, and what that was like, if you had a coming out story, if that was a thing that you had to fight with growing up, being like, oh, I'm biracial, and I'm also queer, and then there's all these other identities you have to juggle and be the picture perfect representation of everything at the same time.
I think I kind of got lucky in that a lot of my friends that were from Africa, they still had that mentality of they came from a country where it was literally the death penalty. And that over time, by the time they were soccer players and they had careers where they could be out in public, and they realized they kind of couldn't hold some certain opinions. I think they just went, I think we'll try to accept it. And then I think they realized, oh, well, he's kind of cool. And I'm also, not very camp, so, I don't intimidate them.
And that's a weird space to have to walk as well. What about you, Quinlan?
Yeah, well, in Chinese culture, blood is really important. So, because I feel like in Western culture, you kind of separate it. At least in America and Australia, you kind of become your own separate, independent person. But in China, you're always connected to your family. So who you get married to, the kids you have, the education you get, the job you have is all very important. So when I came out as gay, my dad was really mad. It was kind of funny, actually, because I had my first breakup. And I was crying in my room, and my mum was hugging me because she knew. And my dad comes in, and he's like, Quinlan, what's wrong? And my mum's like, he had a fight with a friend, it's fine. And I was like, no, my boyfriend broke up with me, I'm gay. And he was like, what? And he was like, you're not gay, you can't be gay. And it was this whole screaming match between us. And he was like, what about your family? What about the future of our name, the Lee name and stuff? And I was like, well, it doesn't really mean anything. I'm gay. It's not going to change. And for, I think, a year, it was really terrible until I think he saw me happy with a guy, and then he accepted it. And he put a little rainbow flag on his business front and stuff. But yeah, in China, it's still not a thing. The only queer-friendly country in Asia is Taiwan. They have marriage equality, but everywhere else,
Really?
And Asia's huge.
Yeah, Asia is huge. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was quite hard growing up being Chinese and gay, especially because coming here, me and Rashad spoke about this when we saw each other. I feel like Asian men are very fetishized in the queer community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So even growing up with that, realizing I'm gay and accepting that, but then entering uni and going into queer spaces, it was like I never felt fully wanted or loved for who I am. It was always like, oh, I'm this little Asian guy. Yeah. So it was strange.
Yeah, I remember watching Fire Island.
Oh.
I remember there was the one white guy who was walking around wearing an anime t-shirt just hitting on all of the Asian
That's a
guys
thing.
and stuff like that, and just kind of okay, I'll be quiet now.
No,
but
I think that scene was in there on purpose because I think it's quite real. And one of the reasons that I was really happy to have Quinlan on here because obviously a lot of our conversations are black based. But when I got here, as far as racism goes, when I saw it mostly towards First Nations people, towards Asian people, towards African people, like African Americans. We were quote unquote safe, which was a very weird feeling for me. Oh, no one's talking shit to me because I'm American first. I was American first, so I was fine. And I didn't like that. So anytime I saw something, I'm like, that's fucked up. And it's the American told us to stop, so maybe we should. And that was a weird power thing, but I used it whenever I could. I'm like, I'm going to use the one time I had privilege. I'm going to use this now because it was really fucked up. But that's one of the reason things. In the dating episode, we talked about being fetishized for being black. But because, again, we had that conversation previously where you have a very similar experience, but to a different extent, I suppose. Just the fact that you're race before you are a person. And it's oh, Asian men, you must be XYZ. Oh, black men, you must be XYZ as well. And it's no. I am an individual, and you can get to know me for who I am or what I want. And it's just a very odd space to be in. And I, again, appreciate that you're both here for us to have this conversation.
Be a black guy on Grindr in Adelaide.
Okay.
No, I did it for 5 days, and I ran. I ran so far away.
Oh,
It's scary.
A flock of magpies.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm proud of that one. That was.
Okay. That's insane.
But yeah, no, I do have a lot of old guys in Adelaide.
Oof.
It's always fun. We have one gay bar or club.
Mary Poppins?
Mary's
Poppins. That's
Oh,
what
that's
it was.
very well known.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh my god, just one gay bar. I'm sorry. I'm just wow. Okay.
I'm sure I'm going to get corrected on that, but
Who's going to correct you? Adelaide doesn't listen. I mean, I look at the stats on a regular basis. So, we have maybe 10 listeners in Adelaide.
that's every gay man in Adelaide.
I mean, pretty much.
And they're the ones fetishizing you.
They're like, ooh.
You're going to lose a bunch of listeners.
Oh, no. All 10 of them.
Listen, if y'all can't handle the truth, and then this isn't the podcast.
Yeah,
for
if you listen to the first 5 minutes of any episode, you would already know that this is going to be what it is. Either you like it or you stop listening. But we already got your download, so thank you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. No, going back to what Rashard was saying about being a Black American here. From my experience, Australians have the culture of no filter. They will say exactly what they think in that moment. They will say exactly how they feel. You know exactly where they stand with you because they will vocalize it very quickly. But I will say that the first spot of racism that I've encountered is a very subtle kind of thing where they'll just ignore you. They will just ignore you and do anything to not talk to you. And which is kind of the most... I mean, it's fucked up, but at the same time, I don't want to talk to your racist ass either. So this actually kind of works out. However, once they do hear the accent, then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, where are you from? How long you been here? Have you tried Tim Tams? Like, it's just like, it just like...
I'm sorry, the start of that accent. Is that Irish?
But I don't know. It's just how I've come to experience. But then when you realize you're the very first African American that they've ever talked to, then it just becomes like oh God, how do I get out of this situation as quickly as possible? I remember we were at a store when we first moved here, 2018. My partner needed a radio for his car, so he could end up going to the Auto Barn or something like that. And we walk in. We're looking, the guy's like, oh, let us know if you need anything. I'm like, yeah, okay, dude. And then I was like, oh, how about this one here? Here's my accent. He's like, oh, are you American? And I'm like, yeah, I am. He's like, oh, okay. If you could say, girlfriend, and does a full neck and snap and everything, I'll give you 25% off. Now, I love a discount. So I did what I did for the coupon, but afterwards I was like, damn, that was kind of fucked up. That was pretty fucked up. It was pretty fucked up. But that was the impression, because they only know African Americans through TV, movies, and stereotypes. So yeah.
You know, I've definitely had very similar experiences with that, where people like to tell me what black things they've watched, and I'm like, okay.
Oh my god.
What does that have to do?
Do you
Like,
listen to Eminem?
he's just as good as the black ones, I swear. And I'm like, ooh.
Strong disagree.
I mean, fully agree. Yeah, fully disagree. Nicole has a strong hatred for Eminem,
hate him.
but we don't have time for that rant, so you gotta hold on to it. Hold on tight to it. Hold on, hold on as much as you can. Again, as far as the discount goes, I've been there. Like, there have definitely been times where I knew that someone was only talking to me because I was a black American. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let you buy all my drinks today, and I'm never gonna see you again. You're not even gonna. I made up names. I'm like, you know what? My ancestors think that shit is too expensive anyway. Thank you for my reparations from a different country. I will take it and I'm gonna run with it personally.
I love that. What was your fake name?
Sebastian. It's always Sebastian.
That's
nice
such a
name.
good one.
Black guy on Grindr.
That's
It's
so
me.
good. I love that. Have you guys ever used fake names?
No.
No?
no.
Mine's always Vanessa.
Vanessa and
Oh,
Sebastian.
Vanessa
Yeah.
and Sebastian.
Vanessa and
Either
Sebastian.
don't give my name or I give my name and not where I live.
Never where I
Well,
live.
never
Yeah.
where you live. What do you mean?
Not the
In
latitude
Adelaide,
and
you will
longitude.
go missing. You will
Oh,
go
in
missing.
Adelaide, everyone knows where everyone lives. That's
Oh my
Oh,
god.
I'm scared.
That's terrifying. Again, I'm so literally my only experience in Adelaide was arriving there as a backpacker. I was there for like 4 or 5 days, and I got off the plane at like 7 p.m. and everything was closed. I got a Domino's pizza and just sat in my hostel and was sad.
You should have gotten there before 5:30 p.m. and everything would still be open.
That's my bad.
5:30
My bad. I didn't know that there was a curfew when eating.
No supermarket?
Like I wake up at 5.
They were closed. Like Perth is something very similar. They close hella early.
Yeah,
and
pretty much everything shuts at they just do the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then Thursdays, it's late night shopping, 9 p.m.
Why
my
Thursday?
God. Oh my goodness.
No, Melbourne does that as well. There's Thursday late night shop here, but
Thursday
not-
and Friday,
yeah,
though.
but it's like not that early, like not as early as that. And I was like, I don't think I'll be coming back here. It was cute.
Sunsets on the beach. It's pretty.
There's beaches here.
There are.
They're not as nice.
I wish there was a tumbleweed sound. I wish there were crickets.
to people from
I wish there were
California?
I was saying, there are beaches. They exist. There's sand and water.
Is it sand though?
They're mostly sand and water.
It's like shells and rocks and like.
Girl, that's what sand is made of. It just hasn't finished breaking down yet. Give her time.
Oh, don't get technical.
Break it down.
You're getting technical. What do you mean? You can get technical, but I have to stop. I understand.
I was actually going to ask, how did y'all cope coming to Australia and having to put up with Australian humour? Or having to, like, get confronted with that? Because Australian humour is quite, like, it's about insulting someone as much as possible.
Yeah, no, it's very much, it's not even crass. Like, crassness we can handle, but it's very much like, I'm going to roast you until you can't take anything else. Like, oh, I feel like, oh, you're too sensitive for this. I'm like, I can assure you, I grew up black and gay in Texas. Yeah. You can't say anything to me that will hurt my feelings at this point in life. Like, and they're like, oh, he's so, I'm like, if it's not funny, I'm not going to laugh at it. I stopped laughing at terrible jokes. I don't do that anymore. And like, did you not get it? I'm like, oh, no, I understood it.
Yeah.
I understood your joke.
Yeah.
Air quotes. I made sure they heard that the joke, but it just wasn't funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Australian humor, I feel like is, it's a lot of banter. A lot of banter is involved, which I don't shy away from it. I think there are Americans who take themselves really, really seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like any kind of like jab at you is seen as disrespect and therefore going to trigger like a really angry reaction. But me, I'm like, I don't know. I don't take myself that seriously that I get too upset about it. And I think also with black culture, we play the dozens all the time. We roast each other playfully a bit. So it's not like new to me. Like I don't necessarily engage in it all the time. But it's not too new. But there are some people who you can't even joke about it. I feel like here you're able to roast Australians back. Oh, yeah. And they'll be like, oh, we all totally locked that. And that's kind of it.
Oh, I'd definitely say something along the same lines. For me, I only like to fuck with people that I know. I have some things I say to Isaac I would never say to a stranger. Because like, if you don't know a person, you don't know their limits. They're like, oh, now you just upset someone and ruined their whole ass day. And that's something I still care about, even though I've lived here for 6 years. So a lot of Australians are like, I was just kidding. I'm like, yes, your impact versus intent kind of thing. So that's still very much in my head of where I kind of draw the line for my interactions with a lot of Australians. I'm like, again, not laughing at fake jokes. And if it's fucked up, I'm like, maybe that wasn't inappropriate. Maybe we don't do that. And that's just sometimes of me not wasting my time, but like spending my time subtly correcting a system that like they really didn't know any better. And it's like only when I have the time, when I have the energy to do so.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, growing up POC and queer, you also have to, like we talked about before, learn how to be kind of witty and throw it back.
Yes.
But I think we forget that straight white people aren't used to that. Like, they didn't have to defend themselves growing up.
No, they
so when you
wouldn't
give
know.
it back really hard, and rightfully so, they sometimes aren't like, oh, wait, I've never experienced this before. Why are you being so mean to me?
Oh my God, I'm being oppressed.
Literally.
That's not what it is. Like hurt feelings is not oppression. That's not what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you said at the beginning, like trauma makes you funny, and then when you go through hardships, you're able to
Laugh it off.
Shake it off.
Don't you dare.
Oh my God.
Don't do
I
it.
went to a Taylor Swift.
Because the players are gonna play, and the haters
Play
are gonna
Taylor
hate.
Swift. Is there a button?
Thankfully not. Thankfully there's not a Taylor Swift button. Because some people would press it too many times.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm a Swiftie. I'm just saying the bop's bop.
But do you agree
She
with
got
that
some
whole
bops.
thing that's going around of people comparing her to Beyonce?
I mean, I just like.
I think that's just about touring.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
just 'cause they're touring at the same
they're touring
time.
the same time. There have been people saying that Taylor Swift is a better performer than Beyonce.
Oh.
No,
And I'm
I
like,
just
what
think,
show
like-
were you watching?
Yeah, no.
I'm very confused.
No, it's like let's be real here. Like we know that it's not gonna give
You can tell I know
Beyonce.
so little about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That just hearing that in the same sentence confused the shit out of me. I was like, I have never heard this discourse. I disagree with it. It's
Yeah.
fake news.
Yeah.
No,
Nah.
ooh,
It's
fake
just
news.
it's just like the reason why Beyonce isn't held. I love that it's spun to Beyonce. The reason why I think. It's just the bar for white performers is a lot lower. So anybody doing a little bit of anything, like shaking a shoulder, you're like, like people lose their mind. Beyonce goes out there and hits like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 19 count.
Floating through
does
space.
full out singing the entire time, costume changes, flying on freaking wires,
2-hour
doing
concert.
everything, singing, belting, the most beautiful vocals, doing the Arabic chords, everything like that. It's never going to be good enough.
And they're like, why didn't
It's
she do
never-
more?
Why didn't she do more? Or, I don't really like her music, or whatever the case may be. And it's just kind of like, it's like Yeah, it's never going to be enough.
Work
so,
twice as hard to be half as good.
Correct, exactly. That's the whole belief. When you're black, you have to work twice as hard to be considered only
Half as good. And that was one of the models I was raised on as well, because I had to try so much harder in school, in a mostly white school, because if I did the bare minimum, I was like one of those black kids. And it's like we could not go outside. Again, we had to go out, make sure we looked good, we dressed well, we spoke well, we were the best representation of our family, because sometimes we were one of the only ones at that school. So we had to be better than everyone else. Everyone else could show up musty and dusty and crusty and be like, oh, that's just Jimbo. He's just doing his thing. But if I were to do that, I would get roasted. I would be talked about for ages. Like, oh, you see, this is why they should be still in segregated schools. Like, not that they said that,
but that's the attitude.
That's the attitude. That's the energy they would be giving you growing up in America in this space. I don't know if you had anything like that when you were growing up, or was that just an experience that's kind of American only?
Ooh, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I don't know. That specifically is.
Yeah, because I think that is just like a principle of like white supremacy, where like within the white community, you're viewed as an individual, and your actions are your own. But anytime somebody within the black community or a part of another ethnic group, they are suddenly the representation of that entire group. And it's like, how are you guys able to afford individualism, but we're not? And yeah, if I want to have a day where I don't necessarily feel my best or necessarily need to feel like dressing up or something like that, or I have a bad day and I cuss somebody the fuck out, all of a sudden it's like representative of everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone and everything. And it's not fair. Yeah. It's not fair.
It's really funny, because one of my friends, when we first started this podcast, he's like, so when are you going to talk about the racism? And he jokingly said, we wait until the middle just to make sure that no one stops listening too early. Because we're like, oh, you guys are too aggressive, too radical for us to listen to. And he's like, you were right. No. But no, realistically, we wanted to have this conversation once we knew what the vibe was of the show itself, but also kind of established that we're going to talk about everything, but we're also not going to skip over racism, because a lot of my friends and family who still haven't visited or want to visit, or just anyone in America that want to come check it out, the first thing people ask is like, how racist is it?
Correct. The very first question.
Always. And it's like, everywhere is racist. Like, if you pretend that somewhere is not racist, then you're obviously oblivious, because there's going to be racism everywhere, whether it's directed towards me specifically or some other group. There's going to be there, and it's going to be something worth being talked about. And one of the things that I did want to touch on was progress from like when you were growing up to now, as far as racial acceptance, or people being a lot more open-minded to things. Like, yes, as time passes, things do get more progressive, but whenever Cheeto got elected, there was this whole weird energy of this, and also the fact there's a vote on The Voice, which we will also talk about in a second. Like, how do you feel like when you were a child versus now as Australia's race relations? Has it improved? Has it gotten worse? Like, is there somewhere in between, in your opinions?
No, I did actually have a moment recently where I was looking back and thinking that Australia has genuinely come quite far, given my childhood upbringing in a place that's predominantly white. Well, like when I grew up, literally Eminem. I could not talk about rap without Eminem being brought up.
Yeah.
And that was the main thing.
Oh my God.
But like now, the fact that I see white kids listening to Tyler, the Creator, that's something that's still, I'm like, that's just, wouldn't see that back when I grew up. I think another thing as well I noticed is seeing more queer black people. Like that existing is really nice.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's me being positive to Australia.
Oh, that's good. Hey, we'll take
Whatever
progression.
progress, yeah.
How about you, Quinlan?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge change. I think it's partly because the diversity in Australia has become so much more widespread. Yeah, there's so much more immigration here. I feel Australia back then was very white. And I feel now we have generations of POC people, and this shouldn't be a thing, but we have the second generation and the third generation kind of coming in. Whereas when our parents came, they were seen as like another, which is horrible. And it should never have been like that. But because it's more integrated now, and people, it's kind of like almost forced, it's been nice. And plus diversity in film and television and music, like, because even me, I get to see myself on screen.
It matters.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's not just K-pop and anime, but it's all different kinds of Asian people.
Yeah.
So I think it has come a long way. And it's like growing up, you start to accept yourself. Like being teenagers and being half or POC, it's like, who am I? Why am I being treated differently? And you kind of take that, becomes like a superpower.
Yeah.
to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to
of
very much form your own
course.
identity.
Yeah,
For sure,
exactly.
For
Instead-
sure.
'cause-
Especially when you're directly connected to hearing white supremacist thoughts because people are just saying it to you, and then you internalize it, and then you have to be like, no, wait a minute, they're the ones who are fucked up. I'm not fucked up.
Yeah, and like you said, all this stuff is projected onto you growing up. It's like you have to be a certain way, you have to be prim and proper, you can't act out because you're already seen as different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's already this microscope on you. Wait, is that the right? That's
Yeah,
what I
no,
said?
no.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then growing up, you're like, well, I can just be myself. Fuck what everyone else
Correct.
thinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I did not have to worry about being the spokespeople for black people because I was raised by a white family in a white neighborhood
Yeah.
in white schools. So I never realized the image I would have had to have been putting up, and if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until, high school when I was like, oh, everyone has this expectations of Africans,
Yeah.
and everyone doesn't really know where to put me now.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, fuck that, I'm just going to go watch Death Note.
Fuck yeah.
And then, are you taking notes as well?
In my...
In your book. That's what. You haven't seen it, have you?
I haven't seen Death Note yet.
We're gonna leave that there. We're gonna let you Google it.
It looks really cool. It looks really awesome. I'm certainly open to it, but yeah, I need to find I need to get onto some.
That's not where you want to start.
I need to get onto some
get you a good intro.
Crunchyroll.
I'll give you my
and start to go through it.
subscription, but we're not going to start you on Death Note because that's a lot. We're going to start doing something cute.
Something like One Piece.
No.
What about One Punch? No.
One Punch Man.
One Punch Man.
yeah.
One Punch Man.
I like the first season.
That's an okay one.
I actually still need to see. Everybody don't scream, but I still need to see Sailor Moon. I know.
We're going to go back to the topic of racism.
I will say something about racism. I think I saw this on a TikTok, the difference between racism in Australia to America, as in America, the racism is a lot more intentional. Whereas they want to murder you. They want to kill you. But here
Yes.
it's more ignorance.
Yes, correct.
Which is still bad, but it's at least you're not going to get killed.
Yeah.
And that is actually the second time that's been brought up on the podcast. Like, unintentional racism. They don't intend for it to come off this way, but it still comes off that way. And for the progress and, I guess, regress thing, at least from watching it from my perspective, I think as far as First Nations people, it has been some
It's
progress.
so violent. It's so violent towards them, though.
But it's still super fucked up. Like,
It's so violent
up
towards
until the
them.
60s, they were considered plants, like flora and fauna, until it's like, oh, yes, these are actual people. So very similarly to America, where it's like, we're in the 60s, like, we were fighting for our own rights. Very similar here, they're fighting to exist as people. And
Yeah.
when this episode airs, it'll be October 14th, which is the day of the voice vote happening. And obviously, I'm going to vote yes for that because I'll be a citizen by then. But
Hey.
the fact that there is a vote to include their opinion on the Constitution it's messy, and I absolutely hate it. Like, and there's a lot of people who are voting no for racism reasons, or like, oh, I don't think it does enough. It's like, yes, but it is a start. And
Yeah.
it is literally just a committee be like, hey, we hate that you're doing more mines. This is actually going to fuck up our community. That doesn't mean they stop the mines. It's like, hey, maybe we should think twice about these mines. And the fact that there's a vote, it's very similar to when there's a yes vote for gay marriage a couple years ago. It's just like, these are things that could just be done. You don't have to get everyone's opinion. Like, more rights for someone else is not less rights for you. And there was all these no campaigns for that and for this, where it's just like, oh, yeah, well, I don't want that because it's new and it's changed. I don't like it. And it's like, okay, Brexit, calm down.
If you
Yeah.
don't know, vote no.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the catchphrases
the
that's going
campaign,
around.
yeah.
And it's just like,
That's not.
there's progress, and at the same time, there's moments like, oh, it's 2023, and we're still doing this.
Yeah.
So it's a very weird space. Again, still very happy in Australia, but we'd be amiss to not talk about these kind of things.
Correct. Yeah, that is certainly the difference that I've experienced between Australian racism and American racism. It's very dangerous for us being visibly and vocally black. It's like you could put yourself in a situation for just existing.
Yep.
But I guess saying that it's just based in ignorance here, like, yeah, that's true, but it would be like an absolute miss to say that we're afforded ignorance or we experience that because we're African American, whereas if we were First Nations, it would be violent. We literally just saw a few months ago, oh my goodness, his name, I see his face in my mind. I just cannot think of his name right now. But the young little boy who was walking home from school, I believe this was in Western Australia. I believe this was in Perth.
Is it Cassius?
Yes. We're going to pull up his correct name. He was accused of breaking a window, coming home from school.
Cassius Turvey.
Thank you, Cassius Turvey. And was accused of breaking this window, and these men came along, pointed him out, and beat him to a pulp. A child.
Yep.
12 years old?
15, but yes.
15? Still a child.
Still a child.
So later taken to the hospital and then succumbed to his injuries over a broken window. But that is the vitriol and the hatred that they have for First Nations people here, where they will kill you over something that could be easily repaired. How is that child's life worth a broken window? So yes, we experience the ignorance, but First Nations people, they experience the violence and they continue to.
Another thing with Australia as well is very much a lot of First Nations people, they all live in the country. And country Australia, rural Australia, is something that's very, very often the sticks. It's hard to explain how much of a Wild West that is. I've had friends who are like social workers in Alice Springs and stuff, and they're just like, yeah, no, it's just everyone knows who's doing what crime. No one really cares. Like, it's chaos. And it's not because of the First Nation people, but because they...
No, that's just how it is there.
Yeah, in Australia, we just don't give a shit about anything outside of the cities, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's how it fucks with a lot of First Nation people as well.
That's so crazy. And I became more aware of the deaths in custody when the Black Life Movement spread out from America and went globally. And I've said this before on the podcast. I love the fact that First Nations people don't shy away from being Black. Granted, they're a different type of Black, but because there are a lot of people in different ethnic backgrounds who are just as dark as us, but they would rather die than be considered Black.
Yep.
But they don't shy away from it, and then they're able to bring their issues to the forefront. And finding out how many people have died in custody here, it just shows you that it just goes on. That's why it was killing me when Australians here were like, oh, it's so crazy in America. Oh my God, I can't believe the police are doing that. And I was like, bitch, you better open your eyes and see what's going on here.
Yeah, the police are doing that everywhere.
It's happening here, but I guess that is ignorance.
Yeah.
Because they choose not to see it.
Well, I was going to say, even when we had the protests here in Melbourne and in every big city, and people were like, why are we doing Black Lives Matter here? It doesn't happen in Australia. We're just supporting America. And I was like, no, the same thing happens here with First Nations people, but also immigrants as well. Like you guys were saying, like when people hear you speak, they're like, oh, they're the good ones.
We get a pass.
Yeah. It happens. The same thing happens with immigrants as well.
I have seen one of my friends get fully slammed by police.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
10 years ago now, but
10 years ago. How old were they?
we would have been 15, 16.
15. So a child.
Yeah.
Sudanese child.
A child. Wow.
Literally, there was a fight somewhere in town, and the police were like, we need to talk to you. And we were getting on the bus, and he was like, I don't know anything about a fight. And then just fully slammed on the concrete.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I have been an abolitionist for quite a while.
I know that's right, baby, because this is some bullshit. So I guess that's been another thing here, talking about the wide outreach of America affecting things over here. And that is something that we certainly saw with the 45th president, who I don't say his name. That's
Voldemort. It's Cheeto Voldemort.
Cheeto Voldemort is what we call him. We don't necessarily want to say his, but I'm saying you guys can. I just choose not to. But I remember when I first moved here in 2018, I was just, I was told no, Australia is you won't have to deal with the racism that you deal with back home. It's different here. People are going to love you, da-da-da-da-da. That's what I was presented with. That is not necessarily what I got, because when
Who said that?
Who said that? And it's white people who don't necessarily experience racism firsthand. So they're like, I've never seen racism, so it must not exist. And they just had no clue. They had no idea. But when I'm moving here and then seeing the amount of 45 murals,
Yep.
and seeing his face everywhere, and seeing "Make America Great Again" hats, and people
and
just
all the banners
walking
for
around.
the so-and-so 2020. I'm like, you can't even vote. What are you doing?
You can't even vote. I remember when I was in a hotel quarantine up in Sydney for the show that I did, and I think I was on day 8, and I'm in this room. I haven't been able to leave for the full week and some change, and outside somebody wrote in the sky his name 2020. And I was like, you can't even fucking vote for him here. Why are y'all going, why is his dick so far in the back of your throat but it just shows how white supremacy is a global thing. It is not just an American thing. It is something that has to do with the mindset, and this man exactly represents this emblem that they want to just follow because he says the things that they believe and they agree with. He's on the news here.
And one thing is him and Morrison were like this as well, and it was very odd interaction. I don't know if you two wanted to chime in on your experiences with that, or if you noticed this kind of thing as well.
I was going to say, I sort of like saw Trump coming in a weird way, because Australia sort of had its own thing with Tony Abbott, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Where it was literally the exact same process where we were all like, he won't get in. He's saying all these dumb shit. He's doing all this dumb shit.
Sorry, for our American listeners, could you explain who Tony Abbott is, please?
He is one of our prime ministers who we don't impeach here, but did we like...
He got replaced. Like, what do you call that again? When they...
I don't know. They'd be changing...
Yeah, I don't know what the proper word is.
But yeah, they replaced him.
Ousted?
It's like not a vote of no confidence, but like something similar to that.
Yeah.
Like his own, because your own party has to do it.
Yeah.
But he is a man with the same sort of thing with Trumpito, where he is both a comedian...
Yes.
He's both a comedian and a clown, where everything he says and does is just funny by its just existing. And so it sort of puts down a barrier where you just sort of start like, no matter what they say, you're like, oh, well, they must know what they're doing if they've gotten this far and being this silly and entertaining. You're like, oh, it's not how it works.
Yeah, that's not how any of this works.
But I mean, one great thing about Tony Abbott is you could tell the man, eat this onion.
I was about to say, was Tony one who ate the onion? He ate an onion like an apple on television.
He ate an onion?
He was at the farm or some shit, and someone was like, check out this onion, and then he was just like, oh yeah, and someone yells, take a bite, and he just goes...
It is getting weird. It is getting weird. Who eats an onion like that?
Even better, he just continues to look and chew as if it's an apple. He's just done a completely normal thing.
Oh, hell no.
I mean, I think texture-wise it's probably the same, but still, surely the flavor would have been like, maybe I should stop. Maybe I don't finish this.
It's getting weird.
So the whole world changing and seeing more progressive politics coming forward and seeing the reaction to that. I think Australia sort of had that with Abbott, and then America just sort of had its own like, oh, we can do this, but include what Reagan did and escalate that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
Did you have something as well, Quinlan?
Well, I was going to say Trump's outreach here when coronavirus came about and put us all inside, and he called it the China virus and called it Kung Flu.
Yeah.
And people like...
They ate that up.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah,
They
I was
loved it.
scared to walk around the city because Asian people were getting bashed up here as well.
Oh, yeah, the Asian
like
hate
students.
was so
Yeah.
especially in that time.
People would cross the street to get away from you or cover their mouths. And it's like, that was because of Trump. I mean, it was like always been racism, but
I would
Trump
have-
escalated it.
I
Yeah.
I
Head of the
absolutely
West.
agree.
So that's,
Yeah, he's already, because it's hatred for Chinese and Asian people already exists here.
Yeah.
And then it just amplified that and kind of like, obviously not legitimized it, but in their minds it was just like, oh, this president is saying this.
It's
So
like, oh yeah, we've got a free pass to continue
free
being...
pass,
Yeah.
they, like,
They
started-
stopped being racist and quiet when he was like, hey, I can do this. I'm like, oh, well, all right, then let me just grab my hood. And
Didn't we cure this with wokeness?
When Obama took office, I thought that's when racism was defeated. But it's
should have
just
voted
like,
for him the third time.
That's the problem.
It's all your fault. It's all your fault.
Afghanistan would have been over sooner.
But it's just like, oh. Actually, I don't know which one's the drum roll.
we're okay.
I don't know which one's the
Take a
drum
break from the...
That's probably like the first thing that I witnessed here, the open Asian hatred and just how it's just like, oh yeah, it's just a part of who he is. I did a fitting for a commercial a couple of weeks ago, and you know, it's like you got a whole bunch of people there, you got to organize and get dressed for the thing. And this guy, the head costumer, was asking people what their sizes are, and he asks this young man who comes in of Asian descent, and he's just like, hey, what size are you? Are you a 20? Are you a 30? And the kid had just come in, just put his bag down. He's just trying to get himself together. He's just a bit discombobulated. So he just takes a little bit of time to be like, oh, am I this? Am I that? And the costumer's like, hello, English, do you speak it? And he said this to this kid in front of everyone, in front of the room, and no one clocked him. No one said anything. No one spoke up. Nobody said, like, that's fucked up. Like, why would you even say that? And like, for what? For what? Because the kid took 2 seconds to answer you, longer than what you wanted, but it's outspoken here.
Is it fashion or film industry?
I'm an actor, so yeah, it was for a commercial shoot.
Yeah, no, that's...
On something
straight
so
into
official. Oh my God. That's horrible.
No, it was crazy. Like, I do know that behind the scenes, somebody ended up reporting him, like, and ended up saying to him it was just completely unfair and should not have been done, which... Thank goodness that happened. But in the grand scheme of things, what's going to make things better is people calling things out and people of color not having to do it. Like, white people need to call white people out.
Yeah. At a certain point, yes, we want to when we can, but it should not be our responsibility to correct everything in a system that we didn't even make in the first place. I actually just brought up a question of mine, because someone jokingly within the black community, someone's like, oh yeah, so-and-so was like, oh, you're racist. Like, people of color cannot be racist. We can be like discriminatory, we can be prejudiced, but racism is not a system that benefits us by putting each other down. But I was wondering if either of you have experienced colorism within your community. And if you don't, or if you know what colorism is, I don't want to assume. Colorism is usually just someone making a preference within our own community. Like, say, if someone has darker skin, they may or may not, they may be expected to have more pain tolerance, or be supposed to be like more masculine, quote unquote. Or if you're light skinned, you're supposed to be more valuable. Because like even during slave times, if you were lighter skin, you would work in the house. If you're the darker skin, you were in the field because you were not as valuable. Slave owners will be fucking the lighter skinned people while everyone else is worked to death because they can handle it. I don't know if you've experienced anything like that for yourselves.
Not as a slave, but that I have.
I'm going to throw you out the window.
Yes, child.
I'm so tired of you. Finish your point.
OMG.
But yes, I definitely have noticed and seen how people have treated me much fairer than people around me of color. Not just fetishized me, but just general trusting me.
Yeah.
And then also thinking to a point that, oh, he's so trustworthy that I can just start talking as if he's quote unquote white.
Totally.
Yeah.
That sort of thing where I'm like, this is a bit weird.
Yeah, yeah, because colorism views darker skin as less valued. Like, darker skin people experience colorism, whereas lighter skin people, we experience privilege.
Yes.
So, yeah. How about you, Quinlan?
Interestingly, like, because in Asia, I think it's kind of similar, but I shouldn't laugh at this racist term.
Oh, not you
Honestly,
laughing!
we can laugh at it because we've already had to deal with it. Like we're allowed to laugh at the shit that's fucked up. So if you're not laughing, you're crying. Honestly.
So, this is like a term. Like, so someone told me about this. There's something called jungle Asians and like city Asians.
Bitch, not jungle
I know.
Asians.
So if you're from the Philippines or Vietnam, you're a jungle Asian, and China, Japan, and South Korea are like the city Asians because they're more. What's the word?
Civilized.
Yeah, civilized, more technology driven. Me and my friends make fun of each other, but we're Asian, so it's okay.
Yeah.
No.
But it definitely is a thing. And the fact that it's a joke, there's obviously not truth to it, but people believe those things. And you're seen as less intelligent. Obviously, they have darker skin as well because they're in more tropical climates. So there is that side of things. Myself, I think I talked about it at the start. It's more like the cultural currency that I experienced. But on the other side, I know I was telling someone who didn't understand racism, how Asians experience racism. And I was like, well, I work in film as well, and Nicole and I have worked together, but I'm client facing. And I remember when I first started at the company and I got on a call with a co-producer and they were white. And I just felt this like, are they going to look at us weirdly because there's 2 Asian people on this call? Because there's that whole stereotype about Asian people working in any industry. And then it hit me that I was like, oh, as soon as I speak, they're going to think that it's fine. But my co-producer has an accent. And I was just like, oh, that feeling was so terrible. And I had to explain that to someone and be like, this is what people of color experience, even in like an everyday workspace.
Yeah, the fact you have to think about that in any interaction on top of doing your job is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And my workplace is thankfully very diverse. But sometimes I think, oh, like, is anyone going to walk in here and be like, there's so many Asians?
Yeah.
Like, it's so horrible to have that mindset. But yeah.
Yeah, because microaggressions are very real and prevalent and something that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And I know that it would be macroaggressions for the Asian community here because it is just so out in the open.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
accepted.
But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but shout out to Filipino people and all the brown skin Asians. I love y'all. I love y'all. Y'all my people for real. I see you at karaoke. I love y'all for real. Y'all are my people. So please don't say nothing bad about brown Asians around me or Asians in general because you will be caught the fuck up.
You will be dealt with.
Correct. Correct.
I did want to speak about like how people always say, "Where are you from?" Yeah.
Yes.
Microaggression.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, Australia. And they're like, but where are you really from?
Yeah.
I'm like, my mom's vagina? Like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know that's right.
But yeah, because even my first time at Circuit, which is a gay club in Melbourne, I remember it was my first time going. And this old white man just came up to me and he's like, "Oh, where are you from? You look so like exotic." And I was like a little baby gay, and I was just like, "I'm from Australia." But like it was really gross. Like it got to this point where he was touching me and he licked my face, and I'm 19. Yeah, and I feel like the only reason he thought that was okay is because I was this timid little Asian guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that whole experience. And on Grindr, it was all no rice, no spice. Or people would, this was a whole thing on Tinder as well, if you swiped through.
Well, that's the thing. And like in America, it was the same thing. Like back when you could filter by race, you could filter out black people.
Yes.
No blacks, no fats, no femmes.
Yeah.
No fats, no femmes, no Asians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's definitely a
So
universal.
Adelaide.
So Adelaide.
I mean, you can say it because you're from there, but
Oh.
Is it still like that?
Huh?
Is it still like that? Do you know?
Oh God, yeah. Because I remember I literally went back like this year, and I was still looking at the Grindr and the number of profiles that would still put that in their profile, like just know this, know that, and I was just like,
that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
if that's not your type, just don't respond.
Yeah, but
They're not racist and quiet anymore. They're
aren't.
racist in public now. It's like what used to be behind closed doors. Now the doors open. They're screaming from the streets.
We have to counter the wokeness.
Yes, clearly.
counter the wokeness because they think wokeness is like
the woke mind
which
virus.
which is actually so insane because being woke is something that it was a term that was used in the black community. Like, all right, brother, stay safe, stay woke. It's something that we would say to each other, and then it's just been co-opted. And now it's like, this is what we're going to call, like, it's like when they used to say urban back in the day. It's just like, oh, yeah, they're very urban, which
My
is
favorite
just a
genre of music.
Yeah. Which is just a hard R. It's like just like their way of calling us niggers without having to say it. So they're just like, oh yeah, they're woke or the woke agenda. And it's
very
just
urban
like,
in here.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's just their way of saying it. Like, but we know what you're saying.
I'm
Just
into
say-
You're not
liberal
slick.
politics, but I'm not into that wokeness.
Yeah, you're not slick at all, and it's so stupid. It's just like Karen. Karen's been co-opted and everything. People think Karen is like,
It's like, it's a swear word. I'm like, girl, it's not. Have a seat. It's not a swear word. They're like, it's basically an N-word for white people. I'm like, I can assure you it is not.
It's not. The fact that you just said N-word lets me further know.
That's my favorite thing. They're like, which one's worse, Karen or the N-word? Which one can you not say on national TV? You tell me. You tell me which one's worse, friend.
Correct. You just said Karen. And the other one, you have to use an abbreviation for it because you will get dealt with. But once again, it's this wanting to be oppressed. It's the view that if other people have rights, then I'm being oppressed.
Yeah.
Which
And again,
is
it's still not a pie. And that's like my favorite thing. Like, more for them is not less for you. It's not like people can be living equally. You made these borders. You made these imaginary systems. If you let go of them, you might be a lot happier. I don't know. I wouldn't know because, again, having been on the other side, I don't know that I ever want to be like, I wish I was white to know what that's like, because having grown up black and gay and all these things made me who I am. So having any other of my identities changed, I don't know that I would be like, oh, yes, if I had this, if I had that, I'd be a fully different person. So I can't even make that assumption about things. But you would hope that people would just be better just for the sake of, wow, look at all these other people living their best lives, and I'm just hating on them for no damn reason.
Yeah. Nah, I ain't changing a damn thing. Y'all need to get your shit together. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's like, yeah, because when I first moved here, and my partner is Australian, well, he's in a subgroup, and I use air quotes with that because in my opinion he's still just white, but anything that is not Anglican British white is considered ethnic. So his family is Italian. And he hangs around with a lot of ethnic friends, and they're Greek and things like that, which, again, I'm like, you're all just white people.
Yeah, it's like, it's mayo versus aioli. He's like, I have seasonings, yes, but you're still, look at the color. Look at the color.
You're still, yeah. But I remember that we were at this party, and it was like a friend's birthday party at this house, and I met these people before. It was like a pretty big house. There was a lot of people around. And I standing in a group talking to people and just having a conversation with somebody else, and this guy who's standing across. Now, I already didn't particularly care for this person because they come from an affluential background. They're rich, and people just view him as better because his family comes from money, when in actuality, anybody can get money. That doesn't make you better or worse than anybody else, but this person was definitely worse. And so I didn't care for them, but for me, I'm just like, I'm just not going to fuck with you. So be it. Having a conversation with somebody else, talking to them, and then I see him across from me start laughing and go, oh, Miss Nigger, and say this. And I was like, wait a second, because he didn't say it towards me. He was just laughing about it and saying it in a side profile kind of thing. And I was just like, wait a second, did he just say what I think he said? I leave the group because, again, I'm new here. I'm new to this party. If I react, I don't know what's going to happen to me. Yep. So I go get my partner, and I'm just like, yeah, I think he called me a nigger, but like to himself or something like that. And my partner becomes enraged. And I'm just like, well, wait, it's.
But at the same time, were you the only one in the room?
I'm the only black person in the entire motherfucking house. So even though I know he had my back, I'm just like, I'm worried about what's going to happen, because I'm like, I don't have anybody to confirm this with me. I don't want to be called a drama queen. I don't want to be called for starting something, and which is, again, so fucked up that I have to prioritize everybody else's stuff above my own. But I'm telling this to my partner. He's like, well, I'm going to go whoop his ass right now. And I'm like, but wait, I need to make sure before you do that, because, again, this person has a lot of access to money and influence. I would hate for I would hate for something to happen to him, just because of this really shitty, awful person. So I go sit on the couch, and I'm just like, and I'm talking to this other girl who's a person of color, but she's a lost cause. And she just is. I talked about her on the other episode. And I was like sitting and talking to her. And this guy, the same guy, he walks around and he comes around and then he sits on her. Because this is a guy, he does whatever he wants. He puts his hands in people's faces and everybody's like, he's so quirky. Again, he's allowed to do this because he's rich. And he sits on her and then he looks at me. He's like, I was saying nagger. I was actually saying nagger. It's a joke. And I was like, well, I don't think it's funny. No. Because I guess it's like the South Park thing.
Yeah.
It was like the South Park episode when the guy was like solving for Jeopardy or whatever.
That's his excuse.
That was his roundabout excuse for saying that. But again, wasn't talking to him. It wasn't a joke, because it was him being like, I can say this in this way and she can't do something about it. Which is fucked up, which ended up fucking up my relationship with that group, because when I spoke to that girl that I was sitting next to on the couch and told her the full story of what happened, she just excused it. She was just like, oh, that's just how he is. He just jokes around, and that's just how he jokes and things like that. And it's just like, I was like, I feel so insanely isolated.
And invalidated, probably.
And totally invalidated. But like I said, in that moment, I just knew I'm just not going to fuck with y'all all the way around. That's it. Like, it's just like, we're cool, but we're not friends. And at the end of the day, I really wish I would have just let my partner whoop his ass.
I also wish you would have let him.
I wish I would have.
I mean, that would have made that story have a happy ending for me personally. But
I know. But it's like, but you fear. I fear the consequences of what could have happened to him with a person with a lot of power and affluence. And what that would have meant. Like, yeah, it would have been really great in that moment to smack the shit out of him. But then what would have happened?
Yeah. And I think that really just ties into like one incredibly fucked up experience, but the fact that that other person wasn't there for you just highlights the importance of that community within ourselves, even if you're not of the same ethnicity, like knowing that we've all gone through very similar struggles, very different backgrounds, all of us. None of us knew each other before being here. It was just like, without a doubt, if someone tells me something, I'm going to believe the person. Kind of altercation, I'm going to believe the person that said, hey, this thing happened to me, because who's going to lie about that? There's so much to lose by lying about these things that you're like, I don't have the pieces, I don't have any evidence. I'm like, all right, what are we doing? Let's go do a thing. And I think that's, again, really compounding the community episode, because that's when you mentioned half the story previously. But thank you for sharing that, because it's a very vulnerable situation. But that is, realistically, yes, as far as we've come as a people, these things do happen. Like, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And there are still places to grow. But I would also hope that sometimes we do things well, but it's still definitely not, it's nowhere near perfect.
We got a far way to go. We got a long way to go. But I wanted to thank you guys for coming on the podcast and giving us your story and stories and what you've experienced here and everything. As draining as talking about racism is, it's even worse experiencing it, but it's so nice to be able in a space that our stories and our feelings are validated. So thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, well, again, very grateful that you were here. Do either of you have anything else you want to add to this? Because otherwise, like, we're pretty good, I think. I've got all my things. Do you, any random bursts of
Does
words?
anyone watch UFC?
Stop! I will not let you
I'm going to mute you. Like, of all the things.
Dude, just the last match was literally between a Nigerian guy who thinks he's Naruto.
Oh, yeah.
And an ex-neo
Not
Nazi.
the circle back to Naruto. Naruto.
If that not an amazing story.
I mean, are you going to finish the story? Because I don't...
Oh, yeah, the neo-Nazi won.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for that. That's
After that story?
I had more to say, and then I just went, yeah, I totally realized I didn't really have much to add to it, other than
Don't worry,
that
sweetheart.
happened, and it was kind of like, oh, Sean Strickland.
That's all right. We always need something to cut, so.
There's some room.
It's like, oh, wow, this episode's running long. Let me just cut 30 seconds out from somewhere.
Whoops.
But as Nicole already said, thank you. We're really grateful for all of you having this conversation with us. As we said before, this podcast is about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we did not want to just gloss over the ugly and pretend that it was just happy, hunky-dory perfection. We love it here. Again, I'm still very happy to be here. Nicole, are you as well?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, but like I said earlier in the podcast, it's like if you are a person of the white community and you hear some bullshit, you need to call it out. Don't wait for other people to do the work for you. If you're an ally, if you want to see progress, if you're just like, oh, why aren't things getting better? You need to open your mouth and correct the people. And I'm talking about your friends, your family.
I love roasting my family.
Speak up.
And in private, just because if you have to see one of us here, I'm like, oh, I should say something, that's already too late. Like, it should be those private conversations where there's no person of color. Like, wow, that's a fucked up thing to say. Let me correct you. Let me tell you why this is wrong. Because we can't be there for everything. We shouldn't have to be there. For people to do the right thing. So,
especially if you're supposedly, oh, I'm one of the good guys. Yeah, if you're one of the good guys, then you need to do the hard work.
Be a good guy and follow through. That's pretty much a great place for us to wrap it up. Cool. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, I'm Rashard.
I'm Nicole.
And this has been Melanated in Melbourne.
Melanated in Melbourne. This has been Melanated in Melbourne, a podcast that analyzes the Australian lifestyle from the lens of two Black American besties. Follow us at Melanated in Melbourne on Instagram and TikTok. If you have any comments or questions you'd like to ask us, then email us at melanatedinmelbourne@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.